Okay, I put this new one that claims 78 to 1. I put it back together, all except for the snap ring on the top. I didn't put that on. And I marked one corner of the output with a soapstone. And it's directly underneath the little mark that's on the seam of the casting. So those two marks right there in the center, one on the output shaft and the other on the casting. I'm going to go on ahead and count my turns. You'll just have to trust me on that. We'll see how close we get to 78 turns when it comes all the way back around to that mark again. Can't even get the handle on it yet because it's got a burr inside the handle. It won't go on all the way, that burr in there. Okay, I counted 56 turns when it came back around. It's actually come back half a turn. It's almost 56 turns, 55 3/4 turns. We line them up exactly where it is, and it's a quarter turn on the handle coming back from 56. 55 3/4 turns, unless this was all the way leaning to this side. It's a little sloppy, so it's hard to tell. So it is not a 78. That is just false advertising, and they will hear about it. And I'm going to keep it because this one did not come from a store that I can just walk in and turn it back in. I'm going to keep it, but I'm going to weld it up and clean up the defects on it. But it is basically the same as this one, I think. I'm going to look inside this one again and find out if those gears are machined or not. As far as I can tell, these are both pretty much the same casting, except this red one has some more flaws in it. They both have 31 teeth on the inside. Now, and all of these castings appear to be about the same too, but the assembly is a little different. The axles on the one from the red one are really loose. They got a lot of side play. All of them do. But I'm not finding that on this new black one that claims to be 78. But it's not 78, it's 56. We already counted. But all the axles are tight on the gears on this one. The bearing is a little bit better, but not much. It is a little better in there. Now, one thing I do find a little bit on this is that these axles do stick out just slightly on this one here, on this carrier here, and I am going to polish that down a little bit with a grinder or hammer them in a little farther, whichever the case is, because on this one, the one that goes on top of it, the axle is not even pushed through all the way. So I might need to just drive those in a little deeper because they are kind of catching. It's a little rough. Rubbing, when I push down on it, it's a little bit rough. They do kind of catch a little bit. And let's see about this one. This one's not catching as much, but it is a little bit. I think I'm still going to polish them down just a little bit with a grinder since I got to work these over. I'm going to clean all the grease out of them, and I'm going to work them all over so that there's nothing catching on them. And then I'll also clean these burrs off of here. I'm going to weld this up a little bit more around there and clean these burrs off of it, top and bottom, because this is catching even inside here. So I'm going to clean that up where that turns a little smoother. You know what? I paid, I don't know, $50, $60 for this one on Amazon. I paid $150 for the red one, and it's now selling for $250. I'm not even going to send the whole kit back to them. I'm going to call them back, and I'll offer to send the damaged unit to them and just keep the sockets, because I don't even trust them to send it back to me. I'll just keep the sockets. At least I'll get something for my $150. And if they want to honor their end of it and send me a copy of this red piece here that's damaged, and I open it up and it looks like it's in good shape, then I will most definitely do an update on that, and say, well, at least they did honor their end of the agreement of the warranty. Okay, I'm going to finish this up, and like I said, I'm going to clean this thing up, these burrs and whatnot, and put it back together with a lot more grease than what it came with. I knocked those burrs out of that bore down in there with an extension and a hammer, and now I'm going to start on cleaning up this piece right here. I'm going to take a grinder and touch up all of these little spatters and this little imperfection in the hole right there. I'm going to clean all of that up. I'm going to dig one of those MIG welders out from over there and get it over here and redo this over here. I got to clean the oil out of it, the grease out of it, but because this thing is so thick, I'm going to have to preheat it with a torch before I use a MIG welder on it, because it's you can't weld something that thick with a small MIG welder. It's either you're going to use a super heavy MIG welder or a stick welder to weld something that thick, and that 1 inch thick shaft there, solid, that should be preheated. Otherwise it's going to super harden the weld and it'll crack. It's going to take me 2 or 3 minutes to heat this up the way I want it. That is going to be hot for a while, and I'm not going to cool it down quick because I do not want to over harden it and make it crack, and it may not fit down inside the housing like it should. Might be just too much weld buildup, and that's okay. I'll grind it down until it fits. While I'm waiting for that to cool down, I'm going to clean up these gears a little bit and press these things. See, there's a hole. There's a couple of these that are not pressed in all the way. I'm going to press them down a little farther. That should do. I'm pretty sure this thing will go back together now like it is. Still has water and dust and stuff in it. Well, not really much water. I did stick it in some water after it cooled down quite a bit because I was getting tired of waiting for it, but long after it was cool enough that it wasn't going to sizzle. Let me go ahead and see if this will go in there like it should. I probably didn't have to grind near as much off as I did. It's not really sticking. It actually fits down in there farther than it did before after grinding off all the garbage from the raw castings. It fits far enough down in there that I'm a little concerned about this gear being able to be fully engaged in the gears down inside. See the distance that I have between the top of this and where the snap ring goes? It's like a quarter, more than a quarter, maybe 5/16 of an inch. Well, this thing is only a little over a 1/16 of an inch thick. So I found a washer in my junk. I'm going to put that in there, and that will take up the space that I need to put this in. But since this thing just barely does fit in between some of these, it's hard. These teeth on here, I'm going to kind of touch them up just a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and take it all apart, clean it, and grease it up real good, and put it back together. And now we've got one that, yeah, I got about an hour, maybe hour and a half, I don't know, tied up in redoing this thing. But I just took a piece of Chinese cheap junk, and I had enough to work with to clean it up, refine it a little bit, put it back together, and I think we're going to have a tougher tool. The only thing I would like to do that I didn't do, which I don't have the machinery to do it, would be to bore this out and put a bushing in there so that that would fit in there tighter. It's the only thing I can't do. There is my review on this. They call it labor saving wrench 1 to 78. And as we just found out, it is not 1 to 78, it is 1 to 56. And the parts were a little bit sloppy inside, but after cleaning them up and re-welding the shaft, the output shaft onto the bottom planetary gear, packing everything with grease, smoothing everything down, getting all the rough edges off of it, it is going to be a good backup tool, and I have more faith in it now than I did before I did that work on it. Of course, it took about an hour and a half to do all of that, and I should not have to, but for $50-something on Amazon, I think that I got my money's worth out of it.